the field of 68. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Jeff Goodman here with me. It is a Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, the only legitimate time zone. It is the first Monday of June. Goodman, I am getting ready to head to Italy. I have to get the hell away from you for a week. It's going to be the greatest week of my entire life. I can't wait for this. I'm going to eat a lot of pasta. I'm going to drink a lot of wine, and I'm going to completely ignore the fact that Jeff Goodman exists in my life for 8 entire days.
Here's the worst part of it. All right. The worst part of it isn't just that you're going to Italy, which I've said I can go to every single year. If you give me the option to go somewhere every year, I'm going to Italy. Number two, I'm stuck right now in a Town Place Suites for the next 2 weeks before hopefully in 2 weeks, we will finally move into our house in Charleston. It'll be ready, but it is not. We had to move out of our final actual rental in Charleston, and now we're in a beautiful Town Place Suites with a bunch of little kids running around the hallways all last night and this morning.
I absolutely love the fact that you've bought this house and you still can't move in. It's the funniest thing in the world, man. You've been talking about moving there. Literally, this has been like a 2-year process. I've had to hear about you moving to Charleston, buying a house every single day. Listen, I could sit here and make fun of you for having to live in a hotel and be homeless for days and days and days and days. But we have too much news that we have to talk about to dive too much into that. Later on in the show, we're going to get into the biggest winners and the biggest losers so far of the offseason. Both of us came up with a list of top 10 for each. I'm very curious to see who you have listed as your biggest loser. I tried to focus it more on
you. I mean, you're my biggest loser. You normally that's after fair. The next that's week, fair. you will go back to number one on the biggest loser chart. But for the next week, you're actually a winner in Italy.
Yeah, I am the winner, man. I am absolutely the winner. All right, so let's start with this. We had some big names that pulled their names out of the NBA draft right before the deadline ended. Otega Oweh is back at Kentucky. Tahad Pettiford is back at Auburn. But to me, Jeff, the single biggest piece of news and probably the biggest surprise of the entire draft cycle to me was Labaron Philon out of nowhere. 30 minutes before the deadline passed, having an announcement come out from, I believe it was, Alabama, their NIL collective. I saw the tweet and I thought that it was one of those, you know how some of these burners will just create these fake accounts and try to put out fake news to get out there. I saw it and I was like, yeah, that's fake. I'm not falling for that. He already said he's staying in the draft. This dude might be a first round pick. What's going on? Then I see Preston Murphy tweeting something about it. I'm like, wait a second. Do I need to pay attention? Then Nate Oates tweeted something about it. I was like, wait, is this dude actually coming back? What do you make of Alabama getting Labaron Philon back from the NBA?
I mean, huge. Like you said, a shocker. Even above Yaxel going back to Michigan, which I thought was surprising because I think it was tilted in a way that he was going to stay in the NBA draft for a while. And then obviously, these guys are realizing, hey, if we're not locked first rounders, which Yaxel wasn't and Labaron certainly wasn't, there's more money on the table to go back. And for Labaron, I think a big part of it too was not only go back for the money now, Rob, go back for the opportunity to put yourself where you are potentially a lottery pick next year. Because right now, I think he was outside the first round. I think he was somewhere in that 25 to 45 range from what NBA execs have told me. And I think he's the type of guy that could really improve his draft stock enough to be a lock first rounder, maybe even a late lottery pick. Yaxel, I think, is just trying to get his way where he's a guaranteed first round pick, which is tough to do. But you want to get in that 10 to 20 range to make sure that even if you fall, you're getting a guaranteed deal. And more than that, even you're getting it to whereas the general manager, the execs are going to make sure they're going to do everything they can to make sure that you're successful, because there's a difference when you draft a guy in the first round and the second round.
Yeah, I think that the Yaxel situation is a little bit different because the number that he was getting from Michigan was so big that it made it not worth the risk of not being I don't know if there's a guy that was more of a consensus that was on the fence, that was more of a consensus to be a first round pick than Yaxel was. But the fact that he couldn't get a guarantee from any team, and it was like, I'm not going to leave all this on the table and risk having
But
to
these
sign
are
like
mock
a 3-year.
drafts too, Rob. You got to understand.
No, I get it,
A
but
lot of
I'm
this
saying
is
like,
a bunch of
no,
people
I
doing
get
mock
it.
drafts that have no effing idea what they're talking about. Okay, they're
Yeah, but
guessing.
there are some that do. There are some that do, and there are some that
Sure.
that the information is valuable. And I think that even if you did a poll of front office types in the NBA, most of them would have said Yaxel Lindenberg would have ended up being a first round pick. I don't think they would have said the same about Labaron Philon. And the difference to me is it's not just the money situation, right? Like Yaxel's a guy where no matter when he goes, he's kind of a known quantity at this point because of his age, because of the skill set that he has, and because of the fact that like the ceiling is somewhat limited. Like he's a guy that's going to go to the NBA and be a good role player for a while because of the skill set that he has and the size that he has. Whereas Labaron Philon is one of these guys where if it clicks for him, he's got like lottery potential next season if it all goes well. And I do believe it'll go well for him at Alabama. I'll get into that in a second. Where he was also someone this year that could have ended up being like the 45th pick. And if you're the 45th pick, you're probably getting a year guaranteed and another year partially guaranteed, right? Which is a lot of money to give up when all that guaranteed money is probably what you can get from Alabama this year. And you're betting on yourself to be able to put yourself in a position where you can get one of these like 4-year guaranteed contracts worth $40 million. I don't think that's the craziest thing to say. So I think it was a good move for Labaron to come back to school. And I think it's massive for Alabama. Huge. One of the kind of underrated storylines was I thought that Alabama had like a quietly disappointing offseason, right? You're losing Mark Sears, you're losing a couple of veteran pieces, and they didn't exactly kill it in the portal. Taylor Bowen's a good pickup, but he's a role player. Jaleel Bethea is a talented kid, but I mean, there's a lot of question marks there about whether or not he can impact a game at this level. You bring in Noah Williamson, you get Houston Millett back, and you got a couple freshmen coming in, but there wasn't a lot on this roster that really kind of made you say, oh, wow, like you got to look out for this team. And that wouldn't have been a problem. But Alabama and Nate Oates has set the expectation that like competing for national championships and hoops is what they do now, right? And if you're kind of like a top 20-ish, top 25-ish kind of a team in Alabama, that's one where it's like, well, what's happening here? Getting Philon back changes some things. Because I think he is a guy that has like legitimate all SEC potential. He's a rim pressure guy. He can get to the basket. He can draw fouls. He can spray the ball out. And you got a bunch of shooters around him now. To me, he really changes things for Alabama in terms of what their ceiling can be if this all clicks and if it all hits.
Sure, because he gives them a point guard. He gives them a point guard. That's the biggest thing is they've got enough other guards that can score it. They need.
Do point guards matter, Jeff?
Point guard matters. I think I've been saying that for a while. Point guard does matter. You know what else matters? Aiden Sherrill. And his development from last year to this year. Remember, he got spot minutes last year. That's the biggest thing. Big Cliff and Grant Nelson. Sherrill played, but he never really got a chance to play through his mistakes. This year, I think he's going to get that opportunity. And, he is a super talented big. And if the light can go on and stay on for Aiden Sherrill, now, like you said, you've got so much depth on the perimeter. Philon, Aiden Holloway, Reitzel, Bethea, who's super talented, as we've said, but we don't quite trust him yet. Houston Millett. That's 5 really, really good perimeter players that can all play this year. So I think the keys are going to be Aiden Sherrill and Taylor Bowen, who, I saw plenty at Brewster Academy and had a decent year last year at Florida State. But, one of those guys has got to really emerge, and if both do, then they're really.
Yeah, he's a good piece. And what I'll say, and then we can kind of move on from this with Alabama, is like now you got a whole bunch of shooters around a guy that can actually go get that paint touch, right? Like that's the biggest thing with the way that Nate Oates runs his offense is you need someone to actually get in the lane, force defenses to move, and then you can kind of spray it around. It's threes and layups. So now you got that guy that can go get you the paint touch, that can get into the lane. Aiden Holloway shoots 40% from 3. Latrell Reitzel shoots 40% from 3. Bowen shoots 40% from 3. Houston Millett was a 40% three-point shooter. Now you got guys that can get there or that can shoot once finally gets there and collapses the defense. Would you take right now If you had to pick one of the rosters, would you take Alabama's roster or would you take Auburn's roster?
Alabama's, because I think they've got more returning guys. That's my biggest worry with Auburn's roster is you're throwing a bunch of new guys together. I don't think you have as much retention. Alabama, look at it now. Philon back, Holloway back, Reitzel back, Sherrill back, Millette back. That's 5 of your top 8. How many teams can say that? Not many. So while Auburn might have higher end talent, I love the retention. 5 of your top 8. If you can do that, man, these days you're doing something right.
Let me play devil's advocate because I tend to agree. Tahad Pettiford, I think, is one of the guys that I'm most excited to see as a sophomore, right? Like he was a dude last year. We saw the highs. We also saw the lows, right? He either looked like the second coming of Isaiah Thomas or he looked like a guy that was completely unplayable and you couldn't have on the floor, right? And I think that what happens when you are a sophomore is you see higher lows, if that makes sense, right? You're not going to have as much of a roller coaster ride when it comes to some of those performances. And if we can get more games closer to Tahad Pettiford at his absolute best, like look out, man, because when that dude caught fire, he absolutely caught fire. And now you can combine that with Keyshawn Hall, who quietly was one of the best players in the Big 12 this past season after losing, what was it? He calls himself Big Guard, right? After losing 50 pounds from when he was a freshman at George Mason. So, I think that you have two guys that are very, very real weapons offensively for Bruce Pearl. And then you got a couple athletes around him, man. Keyshawn Murphy is an absolute dog. Elijah Freeman is going to be one of these guys that comes in as the D2 player that really impacts college basketball. I would probably say that Alabama's the quote unquote better team right now, but I think they're both really close. And I think both of them are going to be top 15 again. I can't wait, man. Tahad Pettiford and Labaron Philon next season is going to be an awesome matchup to watch. Like you got to circle those games as always.
Yeah, do you know how many other players besides Tahad Pettiford return at Auburn?
Yeah, not a single one.
Correct. That's
Does Stephen Pearl still have any eligibility left?
And Pettiford had, I was there to see it a bunch. He had Janai Broom and Miles Kelly, 2 older guys to help bring him along. Now it's kind of his team, but is it his team? Because obviously Keyshawn Hall comes in with making a lot of money and a lot of hype. It's just going to be interesting. One of the biggest strengths of that Auburn team last year was chemistry. And now you're just throwing a bunch of dudes into the hat and throwing them together and saying like, all right, Pettiford, you're going to take this new group that you don't know any of these dudes. Maybe he can do it. But I think I'd go Alabama after, not before Philon came back, but after Philon came back. I'll take the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, it's not easy to do what Kentucky did last season or what Louisville did last season. Like the idea of completely rebuilding a roster almost from scratch and having it be able to win at a certain level. It's I talked about this a little bit with one of the Off the Carousel interviews that I did yesterday, but it's hard for. It's a lot more similar now to what European basketball is, college basketball, with how quickly these rosters kind of get thrown together and how quickly you have to find to be able to make a mesh. And to be frank, like with the amount of money they're getting paid, they're professionals. You got to figure it out. You got to find a way to be able to make it work for a lot of these guys.
Well, there's a lot of them. And there's again, it's almost like you're an outlier if you're Alabama and returning 5 of your top 8, So while we say, hey, Auburn, you're only bringing one guy back, there's a lot of teams that are only bringing 1, 2, maybe 3 guys back of their top, 7 or 8.
Yep. Kentucky's only bringing a couple of their top 7 or 8 back. And one of those guys that they're bringing back is a young man by the name of Otega Oweh, preseason All-American with this kid. I think he very much has to be in the conversation. First team-ish.
You know why not? Yeah, you know why not? Is because I think there's going to be too many guys in that team that you're going to have to feed. Money-wise, a lot of those dudes are making money, and they're going to all need minutes. Now, Quentin is obviously – I don't think he's going to be ready for the start of the season. But the perimeter, look at how loaded that thing is. We just talked about Alabama going 5 deep, and the 5 were a couple of guys in Bethea and Millette who really didn't play a lot last year. Well, let's look at Kentucky's. You got Oweh, who played a ton at Kentucky. You got
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Lowe, who played a lot at Pittsburgh. Aberdeen, who obviously is coming over to play major minutes from the defending national champs, Florida. Cam Williams coming over from Tulane and can really shoot the hell out of the ball. Colin Chandler coming back, waiting for his turn at Kentucky. Jasper Johnson coming in as one of the top freshmen in the country. Who am I forget? Trent Noah. You and I saw go off in a game at Rupp last year and kind of saved Kentucky against Tennessee. What's that? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 right there. That's 7 perimeter guys, Rob. That's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah. No, look, I'm not disagreeing with you at all there. They probably go 11 or 12 deep at this point. And we've seen Mark Pope play that many guys, but that's going to be the balancing act for him, right? It's not, and that's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem that you have to kind of, maybe calling it a problem is a wrong phrasing, and that'll probably get aggregated by Kentucky accounts, and I'm going to get yelled at for it. But that is going to be an obstacle that that Mark Pope has to find a way to be able to navigate. Because if you have 1 or 2 guys that are upset in your locker room about the minutes that they are going to be getting, making sure that they're happy with those NIL paychecks that keep coming in is probably going to be the key for Mark Pope to kind of keep this thing going. But I will say this about Kentucky, right? Like, I don't think Oweh coming back has anywhere near the impact on what Kentucky's season could be as Philon coming back does for Alabama, or Pettiford coming back does for Auburn. I think that takes both of those teams from borderline top 25-ish, if that, to top 10 to 15 in the country, right? Whereas with Kentucky, I think that getting Oweh takes them from being like a top 8 to 10 team in America to like, we really got to have a conversation about whether or not this team could be the number 1 team, could be the best team in college basketball. I think it's still probably Purdue, Houston, Florida to me in that order, but I don't think you can have the conversation of who is the best team in college basketball without having Kentucky in that conversation. Is that fair to say, Goodman?
Yeah, I'm not ready to say that yet, but maybe. I mean, again, I think they've got the depth that those other teams don't have. But when you're talking about the top 7, I'm not sure. I want to see what how he comes back from his injury. I think he's a huge key. And obviously, Diabate is awesome. Like, coming over from Alabama, I think that's probably their most underrated pickup, and maybe the most important pickup for them in the offseason. But yeah, like, they're in the mix, I guess. I don't think they're in the mix for the preseason number 1 for me, but they're somewhere from 4 to 8. And again, it's going to be figuring out role allocation for them. And, to me, up front, I think is going to be huge for them is how they figure
what's going to be really
out.
interesting? What's going to be really interesting about this Kentucky team is that they don't really have a ton of size, right? Like, they got some big guys, but it's not like a team where you look at them and say, I don't know how you're going to be able to deal with that front line a la of Florida, kind of like that, right? And they have some really good guards, but they don't have a ton of just like flat out shooters, absolute snipers. So I'm kind of looking at them like, what is the identity of this group going to be, and how is Mark Pope going to make it all work? And it's less.
Well, it's
like
why Cam Williams.
Mm-hmm.
It's why Cam Williams kind of needs to get on the court, but like, how? I mean, he's probably their best pure shooter
Colin
on this
Chandler,
team.
yeah.
Right. The guys that are like down the depth chart, and it's going to be interesting too to see in this day and age of guys getting paid, where we know Kentucky's payroll is higher than anybody's in the country right now. How much does that factor in, if at all, for Mark Pope, number 1, and also within the locker room a little bit?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you, man. I think that's the one thing that probably has me when I say that there's a top 3. Like, that's probably the biggest thing about Kentucky is how are the pieces going to fit? How are the personalities going to fit? How is the locker room going to all kind of come together? If there's one guy that can figure it out, it's probably going to be Mark Pope. Listen, we have a lot more to get to today. North Carolina added a Montenegrin shooter. We're going to tell you whether or not that is a game changer for them. I want to ask Goodman a little bit about a little bit more into the conversation of the NBA draft and how this is trending now in college basketball in 2025. And of course, our 10 winners and 10 losers in the spring period of college basketball. That's coming up next on the Field of 68. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Welcome back to the Field of 68. Rob Dauster, Jeff Goodman here. Let's dive right into it, man. North Carolina adds Luka Bogovic, a 22-year-old Montenegrin shooter. He's a 6'5" wing. He averaged 15 points, 3.5 rebounds, 2.3 assists last season, shot 40% from three, and in theory, fills a hole for him, right? 22-year-old wing shooter. Kate Tyson wasn't that guy last year. To me, this speaks a little bit more to you missed on Jameer Watkins, you missed on RJ Lewis, you missed on Darian Williams, you missed on some guys to fill that role, and now you have to look overseas to try to find an answer there. Where do you stand on North Carolina and kind of big picture? Is this team and this program where they need to be with this roster right now?
So I loved the early get of Henry Visar, right? I really, really liked that. And then I think it just kind of went downhill after there. I think they overpaid because they had to for a big. They had been hearing about it for a year, and they had to get somebody, and they got Visar. And I actually don't think it was overpaying that much, somewhere in that $2 million range. That's fine for a kid like Visar who played and produced at Arizona last year. Kyan Evans, I don't know, $2 million. It's a lot of money for a kid from Colorado State. I'm not sure on him. Seth Trimble, I like that they retained him, obviously. I think Caleb Wilson can be an impact freshman. Jaren Stevenson, probably more of a backup big. Chapel Hill kid, came back home. So I guess when I look at their roster in totality, Rob, it doesn't move me that much. It just doesn't. I think it's okay. I could see them being similar to what they were this past season, which is on the bubble and maybe just getting in the NCAA tournament. I don't see this being a repeat of 2 years ago when they brought in, some key transfers that really moved the needle and changed the whole complexion of the program. I think they're going to be more of a fringe tournament team this year. You're muted, Robert.
Muted.
Now you're good. Now you're good. Now you're good, Rob. I hear you.
That's where I tend to land with North Carolina as well. We talked about this last week, but I'm just the Kyan Evans, Seth Trimble, Caleb Wilson, Henry Visar, Jonathan Powell is like, it's fine. I don't think there's anything there that really scares you if you are an opposing coach in the ACC. And to me, it's not quite the level of Duke. It's not the level of Louisville. And I would probably make the argument right now that it's not quite the level of North Carolina State right now. I think that those are the clear top three. And I think that's a bad spot to be in when you're North Carolina and you're losing RJ Davis and you're coming off a season where you went 1-12 against quad one opponents and you had to get into the playing game to be able to have a chance to make it to the field of 64, right? And while Bogovic kind of fills the void, to me, it's very difficult to project what the impact's going to be for a lot of these kids, right? Because every time you get a Tommy Ivasic, every time you get a Kasparis Yakashonis, every time you get a guy that comes in and it impacts immediately right away the way that you would expect a 22-year-old that has played 3 years of professional basketball in the Adriatic League to be able to do it, you have a guy like Fedor Zugic come in, right, at Creighton last year. Same size, same profile, same country that they hail from. And while his situation was a little bit different, he dealt with eligibility stuff and it took him a while to be able to play. he averaged 4.5 points. The only game where he scored more than 10 points this past season, Goodman, was against DePaul in double overtime. Okay. And Zugic was a guy that I thought came in with a little bit more hype than Bogovic does right now. So on paper, he fills a void. I don't know if he's going to be the impact player that North Carolina fans want him to be. And if he's not, this is just, again, another fairly underwhelming roster to me. So I don't know if North Carolina definitely did necessarily enough. And this is what we call a teaser in the business, Jeffrey. You're going to hear from them again from me on a top 10 losers list in college basketball. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Big picture, though. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit more on NBA draft stuff. As recently as like 7 years ago, we were having 90 to 100 underclassmen declare for the draft and keep their name in the draft, knowing full well that probably 2/3 of them weren't going to hear their names called on draft night, right? They're there because you get an Exhibit 10, you can make $50,000, you make a training camp roster, you play overseas. As a 21-year-old, like that's not the worst thing in the world, right? And now we're seeing guys like Yaxel Lendenberg who have a very real chance to be top 20 picks. And I'm just going to throw this out there. If he kept his name in the draft, I would have said 85% chance he would have gone to the first round. I think that's probably where I would put it. Now he is coming back to school because it's not worth the risk of that 15% not hitting because of the money that he is going to be making, right? We saw guys like Labaron Philon come back. We've seen plenty of players that had first-round potential pass on even putting their name into the NBA draft. So I ask you, is this what the norm is going to be, right? Is this going to be the trend that continues? Are we going to have more years where you get like 25 or 30 kids leaving early that are the obvious first-round home run hits? Or are we going to end up finding a happy medium because the amount of money that these kids are making are not going to be the same as what it is right now in this moment?
Well, that's what it probably depends on, right? Is obviously the money right now is at an all-time high. Everybody was trying to pay all these kids before the House settlement went in. So I don't know what it's going to look like after the House settlement. So I think, partially that'll determine what happens here. Because, again, when you're looking at Yaxel and $3 million on the line or some of these other guys in $2 million, who knows if they're going to make that? Who knows if they're going to make that in the future?
Mm-hmm. You brought in another surprise. This is your favorite thing to do, is have surprise guests join the show out of nowhere. Sananda Fru, just as of today, a 6'11" German forward. We are live. You just signed with Louisville as of this morning. Sananda, thanks for being here, man. How you doing? It's good to see you.
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. How y'all doing?
Good, man. Good, man. You just signed your official papers a little while ago to go to Louisville. And, the first thing I think most people, whether it's Louisville fans or college basketball fans, want to find out is who is Sananda Fru? And I want you to give us a scouting report. I've watched plenty of highlights of you, but I want you to give me a scouting report, strengths and weaknesses of your game.
Strengths and weaknesses. I think that's a great question. I'd say I'm a super active player, giving my best on the court every time I'm out there trying to fight. And about my player type, I would say I'm a great defender. Like I'm out there playing on the 5, on the 4 mostly. But I would say I can guard basically 1 to 5 on the switch defense. I would say there's no mismatches for me. So on a defensive scheme, I would say I'm moving everywhere on the court, be it outside, inside, shooting, blocking shots, getting steals, being active. And I would say that's a big strength of my game. And on the other hand, on the offensive board, I would say I'm a great pick and roll player. I love to run the floor. I'm pretty agile for my size, so I can move. I can stay outside, stretch the court, shoot the ball a little bit, be inside, grab boards, crash hard, and I feel like I can be everywhere where my team needs me. Just trying to help my team. Don't matter if they need me to grab boards, be aggressive, get scores in the lane or attack the lane. Finish strong, pretty athletic, can catch lobs. So that's what I can say about me.
How did you end up on Louisville. Where did that recruitment process start? How did they find you? How did you get in first contact with them? And why was that the program that you decided to commit to? The 502 Circle, right?
Man, that's a great question. I can't even tell you how I got there. I would say my agent did all the work. I'm super thankful. Milan, he's doing a great work, making it easy for me. And I would just say Louisville sounds like a great fit to me. Like, I got a great coaching staff. I I talked a lot to my guy Cloman and Pat Kelsey. They be reaching out to me, and I think they're playing great basketball. And just the way they're playing, just I think really suits me. Super aggressive, like to run, like big men who are more on the athletic side, run the courts, can stretch the court, play aggressive defense. I just think it suits me a lot, and that's a big reason why I chose them. And on the other side, I think they have a great fan base. My teammate, he played at Kentucky last year, and he told me Louisville, like, they got the best fans in the whole world, basically. And they already reached out, text me some DMs. I'm super happy, super thankful. So I can't wait to get over and touch down in Louisville.
Hold on. So which teammate played at Kentucky that said they got that Louisville has the best fans in the world? That I got to know.
Okay. Best fans is a bit crazy, but he said he got a great fan base. They're going to love me. He said I'm going to fit there, good fans.
Trey Mitchell.
I can't say no
Trey Mitchell.
Right, yeah, he told me they got a great fan base and they're going to love me and they're going to fit the system. And he just said it's going to be a great fit. I'm really going to enjoy my time. He said we're still opponents and he's still my, there's a little thing
rivalry
between us.
There.
And got some rivalry, got some jokes and practices. But yeah, I'm super happy and I think it's going to be a great fit.
All right, where'd you
speak
get the
better
nickname?
English than I think Brian Cloman does. I will say that about you, Sananda. That's the most impressive thing to me is that you speak better English than Brian Cloman.
No chance.
Hey, how did you get the nickname the Flamingo?
The Flamingo? Oh my God. So first of all, I wouldn't say that's my nickname, but my coach and I think when I played in the U14 in Berlin, he said I almost taking like flamingo shots because I used to shoot like a one leg fadeaway and he hated it. He was like, "Oh my God, Sandy, please stop shooting this shot. This horrible shot. You always shoot flamingo. You look like flamingo. It's horrible." And that's where it came from.
Break down your first the first time that you met Pat Kelsey, right? Because Pat Kelsey, he could be energetic, he could be entertaining, he could be a lot. I want to know your first experience meeting him and what it was like the first time you had a conversation.
And I haven't met him in person yet, so I'm still waiting for it. Super excited. But the first time we had a talk, he was like a super nice guy, super, like you said, super energetic, like outcoming, talking to me, like kind of showing me around on his iPad or on his computer around the facility, showing me how it's looking. And I feel like he's just a great guy, good guy to be around, super positive, energetic. I feel like he's never going to have a bad day. He wakes up, is super energized, brings the energy for, I feel like, everyone around the room. And I just felt like he's a great guy, talked good to me, and I really can't wait to meet him.
Why has there been this rash of international guys coming over to the U.S. recently? Is it because of the money? Because my guess is you didn't maybe you did grow up thinking I want to go play college basketball. You grew up thinking I want to play in the NBA. Ordinarily, over the years, there were a few international guys that would come over and play college, but not like it is right now. What's the biggest reason for that?
I think the money is the point, but I think the even bigger point is the opportunities. Like, especially in European basketballs, on all the teams to get on, it's mostly about like, you have to try hard. You're the young guy on the team. You got to work the hardest to get chances. And even often for you, like, you're working hard and giving your best, you still get no chance to play. And I feel like it's easier to play in the US. Not easier, but like, I feel like you get better chances and coaches trust you a bit more. And the other guys are in your age group, so it makes more sense for you playing. He's like grown man. They've been through all the programs, and it's like super, super tough to compete for minutes. I think that's a big reason people go over. And just, I feel like it's easier to chase a dream. And I feel like every young kid wants to play in the USA at one point, want to make the NBA. And I feel like the US gives you the best chances. And they got some great coaches, especially the individual work is like on the level. There's a level by himself. I feel like European basketball got to step up a little bit in that direction. and just the individual work plus the chances you get on the court just sounds super nice to people from Europe.
Yeah, so are you an NBA fan? You watch a lot of the NBA?
Unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult because of the time difference. So most of the games are like 2 a.m. and I got practice and stuff. So I'm going to rewatch some highlights afterwards and see the scores. But unfortunately, I can't watch the games.
Can you give us a prediction on the NBA Finals, Oklahoma City or the Pacers? Who you got?
That's a good question. I'm going to go with the Pacers. I'm a big Labaron fan from the playoffs on.
Ooh.
Man, this game stepped up, especially after you got voted for this, like, what was it called? Like, most overrated player. And he's been killing it since then. And I love a nice
They
Cinderella
pissed off the
story.
wrong guy,
I felt like,
Sananda. They pissed off the wrong guy.
huh?
They made the wrong guy angry.
Exactly. He be stepping up. He be showing, man, you call me overrated. I can show you overrated. And he be backing his stuff up. The celebrations, he got it all. I feel like it would be a nice story if he wins it all.
Give me who's your game like? Because everybody, and it may be a combination of a couple players, because everybody wants to know, like, before you get on the court, well, who is this guy? 6'11", 245. He's long. He can run. He's skilled. He doesn't shoot a ton of threes. Like, who would you compare your game to in the NBA?
It's a good question. I wouldn't say there's like one comparison that I'd say, yeah, that's my game. I'm on my game like him, but I try to be the best of myself, my version. But if I had named some, I'd maybe say like Bam Adebayo, Evan Mobley, maybe even some say like an AT type of direction. Because, yeah, I feel like Adebayo and Evan Mobley really suit me. Because I feel like there's some very versatile defenders. Like I said, they switch out a lot, play defense from 1 to 5, defend every spot. Basically built like me, pretty similar, super long, can move. And I feel like they impact the court on a lot of ways, not only about scoring, but just helping out the teammates, being the right possessions and making the right plays.
Well, you just compared yourself to the two best and most versatile defensive five men in the NBA, Sananda. So way to keep the expectations low for Louisville fans. Listen, man, we appreciate you jumping on. It's going to be a blast to see you guys play this year. Goodman and I both love Louisville. I'm probably the bigger Louisville fan here on this show. Goodman is he thinks you guys might be a little bit overrated. So if you want to take that message back to the guys down there in Louisville, just let them know. Bring that motivation. We appreciate you jumping on. Congratulations on signing, and best of luck this season with the Cards.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me, and I wish you a good talk.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate
you. Sananda Fru, the next Evan Mobley / Bam Adebayo. Goodman, that is a good comparison. If you're a 6'11" defensive switchable forward, he's picking the right guys to model his game after. Are you ready to get into winners and losers of the offseason?
Do this. I know you got to get ready. You got to pack for your flight to Italy. So I know we got to get through this.
Well, first of all, I already packed. Second of all, part of the reason why I was late is to start this show is because I was busy finishing up some last minute things that I can't. I saw, this is off topic, but someone said to me the other day that every single marriage is a combination of where one person has to start packing 10 days before the trip to make sure that everything is done. And the other person just throws a bunch of crap in a bag literally the day before they leave. And that is exactly my wife and I. Just throw stuff the day before. Like, what's the point of packing beforehand? I'm going to need the stuff I'm bringing, right? I know what I'm going to bring. I'll just throw it all in the bag and go. I'm good to go.
Do laundry at the very end. You throw everything in the laundry, and then you just take it out of the dryer and put it right in the suitcase.
Yes, exactly. Like pretty much, yeah. You got to fold it and kind of get through that process. And when we're going to like the Final Four and stuff,
T-shirts, like why? Just throw them in there.
No, I'm not talking about that. It's more like, when we're going to events and you have to bring a sports coat and you have to bring a button down, like you gotta make sure you fold that stuff the right way to fit it all into a carry-on. But
this is. Can I give the background to this trip to those watching a little bit how you got the trip?
No, if you want to, yeah, go ahead.
Rob's wife is the big breadwinner in the family. Okay, she's the one who holds everything down in the family, and she won a trip through her company. So Rob gets to be just kind of the I don't know what to call you in this
You can call me a
on this
trophy
trip.
husband, and that is 100% correct. That is exactly what I am.
I didn't want to do that, but fine. We'll do that.
I literally
You are
have
the
a shirt
trophy
that says trophy husband on it that I wear half the time. But we're
you
flying
can't embarrass your wife. On this trip, I will say this, Rob. One piece of advice. All right, this is my one piece of advice to you on this trip. Have fun. Do not drink too much and embarrass your wife.
Well,
Okay?
here's the thing. Like, all of my outfits are picked out for me. Our itinerary is already planned. Like, I'm literally, I'm doing nothing but going along for the ride here. Like, I have no responsibilities at all. So yeah, it's gonna be.
But when
be fun.
she gives
you know what I found out today? Hold on. You know what I found out today?
When she gives you that look, cut off. You're cut off. All right. So
Yeah.
just
No. Oh, I know. It's bedtime at 8:00. We're gonna get up early. We're gonna be working out every morning, which is gonna be quite a vacation. You know what I found out? They so the first place that we're staying will be a luxury hotel, let's say.
Good.
And then we're staying at another one that's not like in the city itself. It's more out like in the mountains. And to be able to get there, they have, I don't know what they're going to be, but it said that they have rented luxury cars for us to be driven from the first hotel to the second hotel. So not only are we flying out their first class, staying in first class accommodations, I will be sitting in a luxury car. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm very excited to find out.
I was hoping you were going to tell me it was like you had to ride a horse from one hotel to the other. That would have been better.
I can ride a horse. I've ridden a horse before. Let's get this back on track, okay? Let's get this back on track. I got Trevor yelling at me in my ear. All right. Winners and losers first. What do you want to do?
I mean, I'm all about positivity, right? I mean, I think we've established
that's
that.
what they say about you.
I think we'd like to go with winners. Winners first.
All right.
And my biggest winner.
My biggest winner is Purdue. Oh, yours is
Mine's
Iowa.
Iowa. I don't even have Purdue on my list. Because like Braden Smith wasn't going anywhere. I don't understand. Well, like, what was the thought? Yes, they're winners, but like Braden Smith wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't leaving Purdue. And yeah, they lost a couple guys, Rob. So I'm not putting Purdue on that list. I'm putting Iowa because not only did they get arguably the second best point guard in the country in Bennett Sturts to come with Ben McCollum, but they got Ben McCollum in the offseason. So they got an elite coach. They got an incredible point guard. They went and got a shooter around him, and former Villanova, former Kansas State shooter Brendan Howson. They grabbed Robert Morris, transfer and NEC Player of the Year, Alvaro. I can't pronounce his last name.
Fulgaris.
And then they got Tavion Banks and Cam Mania. I always screw up his last name too. I'm in off-season mode right now.
Cam.
Right, coming over from Drake too. So I think Iowa is a fringe preseason top 25 team. They have as good a point guard as there is not named Braden Smith, shooters around them, and they're in business, and they've got a coach that you can build around for years. So Iowa, to me, the biggest winner because it could have went way wrong. It could have went bad, Rob, like really bad for Iowa. And instead, they are relevant.
Yeah, I don't hate the logic there. I don't have them as one of my top 10. I don't hate the logic there. I have Purdue number 1. Look, but we talked about it earlier, right? One of the things that you have to prioritize when you're talking about winners and losers of the offseason, I think, is continuity and who are you bringing back and how many players do you have that are going to know like where the best place to eat is in that town that they're in on the first day of practice, right? And I don't think anybody had better continuity this offseason than Purdue. They added Oscar Clough. They added Liam Murphy. They got the Israeli point guard, Oscar Meyer. I know his name's not Oscar. I'm just making a joke there. But you also bring back 2 All-Americans, right? And one of them, I think it's safe to say everybody's heard it at this point. Like, there were plenty of rumors of Braden Smith kind of maybe, peeking on the other side of the fence, seeing if the grass is greener over there during the offseason. So they got back Braden Smith, who might be the National Player of the Year in the preseason. They got back Trey Kaufman-Renn. They got back Fletcher Lawyer. They added Oscar Clough. I think that they're the preseason number 1 team, and I don't know how you can do much better than that. The rest of my top 10, I had Michigan number 2. I think the getting Yaxel Lindenberg back, that is as big of a win as anybody had in the last month, right? As more important than adding any of these transfers, more important than adding any of these freshmen. Like, I think that he was as big of a get as anybody had. It's funny. I did my preseason top 25, last week, Jeff. And out of everything in that ranking, you know what I heard the most back about? Like, how can you have Michigan outside the top 10? I had them 11. And it got a lot of Michigan fans fired up. I think that the level of expectation Dusty May has heading into that second season is going to be really, really high. And maybe, do I have like big blue blinders on or something like that? Like, what am I missing? I have them 11. Is that too low?
No, that's fair. Again, I think we've both said we want to see how those pieces fit too, and if they've got enough shooting, because you're bringing in, a big in Merez Johnson, not a shooter, not a floor spacer. Mara is not a floor spacer. Elliot Cadeau, their point guard, is not a floor spacer. So I just, that's my big concern. Do they have enough perimeter shooting for Michigan? So I would probably have them outside. I haven't done my top 25, but I'd probably have them somewhere in that 10 to 15 range as well.
All right. Trevor, sorry, if you could bring back up my top 10. So I have Purdue, Michigan, Houston, getting Milos Uzan back, and JoJo Tugler and Emmanuel Sharp. Obviously, they're a big winner. I thought Florida did as precise a work as you could have done in the portal, and they got Thomas Hawk and Alex Condon back. Kentucky for obvious reasons. Texas Tech brings JT Toppin back, who could have been a top 20 pick. Christian Anderson's still there.
Okay. Can I stop you? Let me stop you here. There's like a baffling omission and a team on there that you just said. I don't understand. Your favorite player in the country is who right now? Who's your favorite player in the country?
Are we going to go with Darian Williams?
Yeah. He's your favorite player. You've talked about him like ad nauseum all offseason. Texas Tech lost him, and you have him somehow as a winner in this whole shenanigans. And NC State gets him, and also they get Will Wade, and you do not have the Wolfpack in your top 10 winners. I don't understand. Start with NC State, because they are absolutely have to be a top 10 winner. They got an elite level coach, and they got Darian Williams, your guy, Trey Holloman, a veteran, tough point guard. Terrence Arsenault comes from a Houston program where again, he was a top 50 player coming out of high school. He just couldn't really get in that starting lineup because of all the talent ahead of him. Allen Breed, he brings with him. Kadir Copeland, he brings with him from McNeese. They just got Van Allen Lubin yesterday, a good piece coming off the bench, probably up front. How the hell can you not have NC State in your top 10 winners?
So I might have cheated a little bit putting this list together, Trevor. You can bring it back up. If you look at number 9, I have the ACC. So I wanted to find a way to be able to get
You're going to claim everybody. You're going to claim
everybody.
I
wanted to get it. There were 11 teams. I wanted to make sure that I got San Diego State on the list, because I don't think we could do this without talking about them. And I didn't know who to cut between NC State and Louisville. So I just put the ACC overall. I might have cheated a little bit. But yes, NC State had a fantastic offseason. Like, they stole a 5-man from North Carolina. You brought in Darian Williams. You add Trey Holloman, who is the perfect Will Wade guard. Allen Breed. I love what the NC State did. I love what Louisville did. Right. That's part of why I have them kind of meshed together. I think you also need to mention the fact that like Miami should once again be pretty relevant. I thought that Jay Lucas did a really good job building that thing out. Virginia, we haven't talked anywhere near enough about what Tony Bennett has done. Like, Virginia's going to be really good.
Tony Bennett's done. Tony Bennett's retired. Tony Bennett's on a beach somewhere, hopefully.
Well, Ryan. Sorry, Ryan. We just ran your off the carousel this morning too. Sorry, Ryan. Ryan Odom has done this offseason. I think UVA is going to be back in the mix for top 25. I think the programs that the ACC needs to get right and get going, 3 of the 4 got going this offseason to me. Syracuse has not quite done it, but that's why I put the ACC
I actually think Syracuse has done okay. I think Syracuse has done okay. They kept J.J. Starling. Like, they've done okay. They're not, vintage Syracuse, but I think they'll take a step forward and could be an NCAA tournament team this year.
I really hope they don't take a step back, because I don't know how much farther they can go. Anyone else on my list that you want to push back on? I do just want to call out San Diego State. They get Miles Bird back. They get Magoon Gwath back. We talked with
I have
Dutch.
I have Michigan. I have Houston. I have Florida. I have Kentucky. I have St. John's. I have those 5. Those 5 we have in common. I went with a couple others that you didn't have in there. I went with Texas. Again,
Yeah,
I
Texas, I
also
get.
included offseason winners. I also included the coach a little bit. Not
Yep.
going from Rodney Terry to Sean Miller is a major upgrade. Brought in Cam Heide from Purdue, brought Dalen Swain with him, Simeon Wilcher, and he retained Tremont Mark, the Weaver kid, Jordan Pope, and then the big kid who I love from FAU, Modest, is a killer. I mean, an absolute killer, tough as shit. 5-man who just, plays tough. Sean will love him. Oklahoma is another one. Didn't make my list, but could have. UConn was like 11th or 12th for me. To me, it depends on what Alex Karaban you're going to get back. Honestly, we're rejoicing and Alex Karaban come back. And I love the kid to death. But which Alex Karaban are we going to get and how much help is around him? And you've got Silas Demery as like, I don't know, like the
Number one pick.
Jesus out there.
Number one pick.
He's like Jesus to you.
When you talk about when you have that conversation about who can be the next Michael Jordan, right? You start with Ant Edwards, and then you probably get to Silas Demery right after that. It's probably those two. No, in all seriousness, I think the UConn staff this offseason was much more detailed and made much better decisions on who they targeted in the portal. They got Silas Demery, who I think is exactly what they needed the point guard spot. You add Malachi Smith, who I think is the perfect replacement for what you need off the bench where Hassan Diarra was. And they made sure to prioritize getting Solo Ball back, getting Terrace Reed back, and getting Alex Karaban back. And I think now, if you look at the way that their roster is kind of built, you add Braylon Mullins as well. And Karaban's going to end up being the fifth option offensively. And when he's the fifth option offensively, he is the best role player in college basketball. And to me, that is exactly what he needs to be able to thrive. I think what happened, I've said this over again, he got put in the wrong situation last year. It torpedoed his confidence, and it did not put him in the best situation for him to be the best player he can be. I think he will be that next year. So I'm very high on UConn. I will admit that I might be looking at this through Husky tinted glasses, but it kind of is what it is. So is there anyone else? I think that's all. We weren't that. I get where you are with Auburn. I get where you are with Texas. I think I agree with a lot of that as well. Let's go to biggest.
Put BYU on there. I wanted to put BYU on there because obviously they brought in AJ and they kept Richie Saunders and they got Rob Wright from Baylor. Oklahoma, I really wanted to put on there because I love their starting five. But again, it was hard. There are probably 15 teams that you're fighting for 10 spots, but not to have NC State. That cheating with Louisville, NC State. It's
because I wanted San Diego State on there. I wanted San Diego State on there, and I couldn't leave off any of those other teams. But we talked with Dutch about this in February. Now he was already getting those conversations going, and I was like, "There's no way you're going to bring back all of these guys that you want to be able to bring back," and he did, man. Like Magoo Walk is a game changer. Yes, I have been to San Diego. It's beautiful. Okay. It's wonderful. They have unbelievable beer. I did a beer tour there. It was the greatest day of my entire life. I had so many West Coast IPAs. I've never been that happy ever. No, but I wanted to make sure specifically to shout them out, and I couldn't leave off any of those other teams. So I cheated. Right. I cheated the system. I cheated the game. I'm sorry. Really I apologize. Trevor, don't yell at me. Biggest losers. The number one biggest loser that I had on this list was the Memphis Tigers. And I don't know. I don't know how if this is really.
We both had 1 and 2 the same, Rob. We both had the same 1 and 2, and the others that are similar are number 5 Baylor. I had on that list. Number 6 Xavier. I had on the list too. I didn't think you'd have them on there. St. Joe's you totally could have. I went with more high major programs in this one. The high majors. From the Power 4 or 5 leagues. But yeah, Memphis, I mean, listen, look at their roster right now. Again, they missed out on PJ Haggerty. They didn't keep him. And you just look at their roster right now and you're just like, okay, how are they going to do? Doug McDaniel, who has lost a lot of games in his college career, and they were desperate and they got him. Aaron Bradshaw, who's got a ton of talent, but We haven't seen it really materialize yet in 2 stops at Kentucky for Cal and last year, certainly at Ohio State. And then you just got a bunch of other guys that, like, Sincere Parker was a nice player at McNeese State. Quante Berry was a nice player at Temple, but it's a underwhelming roster put together by Penny Hardaway and his staff this year.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they have last year's roster, just the underrated version of every guy. Like they kind of took it, like they went from PJ Haggerty to Doug McDaniel, who's a good player, but is like probably 75% of what PJ Haggerty was, right? They went from Tyrese Hunter to Sincere Parker, who's like, Sincere's a good player, but he's not quite what Tyrese Hunter was for him, right? And it just feels like there's a little step down at every spot that they went to, which is not what I thought was going to happen at this point in the Penny Hardaway tenure. And some of it I understand, right? Like Memphis is probably not dealing with the same budgets as some of the Big 12 and Big 10
they have
and Big
FedEx
programs are.
Robert.
They do. They
Robert,
do. I know. I get it.
FedEx money.
And Penny Hardaway is worth 9 figures. Like there's ways that you can be able to figure this out, but it's still, I understand it to a point, right? But to have this much turnover, to basically lose your entire team again.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is probably the hardest one to swallow us for Memphis fans is that they had a higher number on the table for PJ Haggerty, and he didn't end up coming back, and he was gone. And some of that is maybe mismanagement on the part of PJ Haggerty and the people close to him, but that's a tough one for me. Why did you have Kansas that high on the list? I'm curious. I want to hear what your logic was for it.
I mean, just the fact of like what they missed on at the end. I mean, it was shocking. Bill Self, and you're missing on, Darian Williams and the Sarr kid. And I just look at their roster and I'm like, all right, Darren Peterson, I love more than anybody and have. But then you're looking around, you're like, all right, Melvin Council can't really shoot, right? St. Bonnie's. Trey White has been kind of well-traveled. You got Flory back, but Flory's not a floor spacer last I checked. So where's the shooting coming from other than Jaden Dawson, who, oh, by the way, was at Loyola Chicago. So I don't know, man. Like, I just see a lot of issues with this team and how it's put together. And then you look at, like, their depth. Where's their depth coming from, Rob? Like, Elmarco Jackson's a nice piece, I guess, coming off the bench. And Bryson Tiller better be great. Like, he better be really, really good because Jamari McDowell, again, Marco and Jamari are like, okay, like, but I don't know, man. This roster looks underwhelming. And then they lost also, Norm Roberts, their veteran assistant's gone. Mm-hmm. Fred Quartelbaum, their culture guy, in their there's just a lot of questions with this. Darren Peterson he could be an All-American, but almost by default, looking at this roster, like he might have to do way, way, way too much as a freshman.
Yeah, and it's not only missing on Darren Williams and Dame Sarr, right? Like RJ Lewis decided to stay in the draft instead of coming back to Kansas. Jameer Watkins decided to stay in the draft instead of coming back to Kansas. And I don't think either of those guys are players that you would look at and say, okay, yeah, they're definitely, first round locks. So there's a lot of would have changed for me if Darren Williams would have picked Kansas over NC State, but he did not. And that's kind of where we are right now with Kansas. I had North Carolina third on my list. Some of it is for the reasons that we discussed earlier. I just think that when you are Carolina and you are coming off the season you did last year and you have the money to spend that they did, when you end up with Kyan Evans, and all due respect, because I think these guys are good players, but it's North Carolina where you expect pros and All-Americans at those 2 spots. It's very hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that this Carolina team has the build that they have this year when we know how many good point guards were available think about how many good All-American caliber point guards were available in the portal this year. And you end up with the backup point or the third option point guard from Colorado State. And again, like Kyan Evans is a good player, a fantastic shooter, and a guy that I think will be able to impact in the ACC. Same with Henry Visar. but I don't think either of those guys are going to come in. You're not looking at RJ Davis and Armando Bacot coming in. That's probably the best way that I can phrase it. And that's what you had when you made the championship game in 2022 and you finished as a 1 seed in 2024, right? Like you need a point guard and a 5-man, and they just, I don't think that they got the level that you would expect out of a North Carolina. I put Arizona 4th. And Arizona, like whenever I have Arizona on the list,
I'm glad you did. Hey, I'm glad you did, because if I did, I would get lambasted of, he hates his alma mater. Why does he?
It's like every time I do this, I explain my logic as like, I think it's a risk when you are a program like Arizona to go all in on a couple of freshmen being the ones that carry you in an era where college basketball is older and more talented than it's ever been. And love Braden Burris.
And they're not top 5 freshmen. They're not top 5.
I think both of them are really good. I don't think either of them are Cooper Flagg, Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, that level. So I think it's a risk that Tommy Lloyd is taking. And if this ends up striking gold, like I will eat crow on it. I just think it's a risk. And I think you lost a couple of really key pieces, and there's a lot of ifs that have to come together for Arizona to be as good as we expect Arizona to be. So I have them. I think they're right borderline preseason top 25. I think they should be a tournament team, but I think that there should be more on that roster than I see right now. Is that at least what my expectation normally is?
One roster, Rob, that we both have in common up there as losers, and I hate to do this because he's a friend of the program and on all the time, is Scott Drew at Baylor. But man, like their roster compared to what it has looked like the last few years, right? I mean, he's had pros. He's had, he got Norchad last year, one of the best transfers out of the portal. This year, you look at their team. First of all, they lose Rob Wright, who they thought they had. They had him signed in the middle of the season, and he goes to BYU, which is a huge loss. But look at their team right now. J.J. White, an Omaha transfer who will probably play the point for them. Obi Agbem from Wyoming. Nice player, averaged like 18 a game for the Cowboys, but they didn't win a lot of games. Daniel Skillings Jr., I actually like a lot coming from Cincinnati, but he averaged like 9 a game for Cincy. The team that didn't make the tournament. Kid from Oregon State, Michael Ratage, I think is how it's pronounced. He averaged 17 and 7. Caden Powell comes from Rice. They didn't win a lot of games. I look down their roster and I'm like, where is it going to come from? Like, this would be perhaps Scott Drew's best coaching job if he gets this team where they stay in the top 20, 25 all year.
Okay.
I don't see it.
First of all, Scott Drew won a national title. Okay. Like that's going to be the best coaching job that he ever does for the rest of his career. Okay. Second of all, do you remember where Baylor was when he took this program over? Like the idea that Scott Drew doing anything to get a team top 25 is his best coaching job is just blasphemous and something that you should immediately regret. I think you need to resign from this program and sell your shares of the Field of 68 to Scott Drew at a cut rate deal for that as a result, right? Two. Third, I agree with you like 100% on just kind of like the roster. I will say this, if they had Robert Wright, if they had a guy that you can kind of circle and say, okay, that's the focal point, that's the All-American, that's the guy they can build around, and then you have a nice, like Obi's a nice piece. Daniel Skillings is a really nice complementary piece. You didn't even mention Tunde Yesufu, who was like an absolute certified bucket, right? A freshman coming in. They got really nice pieces. They just don't have the guy to kind of build it around. And I don't know how much more. Like, what are you going to do when you got a guy signed and another program comes in and offers to triple the amount of money? Like it is what it is.
They need to raise more money. They need to raise more money. I guess.
Like it just is what it is. Last thing that I'll just say, two I want to mention real quick. Point out, I had Tennessee on my list. I think that might be.
I don't like that. That's bad. That's a bad take.
Why?
I think they did a decent job. I mean. They got one of the best transfers in the portal in Jacoby Gillespie. They got one of the best freshmen in the country in Nate Ament, who we both kind of, are skeptical of because of his body type. but he's still super, super talented. And you can't, I mean, and to me, Cade Phillips is going to move into a big role. He's tough, hard-nosed. He's a Rick Barnes type player with Felix Okpara, who had a pretty good year last year. If he takes a step forward, Jalen Carey coming from Vandy, he's productive. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to have that dude that they've had the last 2 years coming out of the portal, but Jacoby Gillespie's pretty damn good last I checked.
Yeah, look, Jacoby Gillespie's good. And I think Nate Ament's got real potential, but I just it's an underwhelming roster when it comes to a Tennessee team where, like, my expectation for Tennessee, and I want to put this into context. Like, I think Tennessee is a top 20, top 25 kind of a team, right? They're going to be in the tournament. There's a good chance they end up being like a 4 or 5 seed, right? I could see them in the Sweet 16. My expectation for Tennessee at this point, like based off what Rick Barnes has done the last 5 years, is like they should be in the conversation for top 10. They should be at some point during the season ranked in the top 5. We should have them as a potential SEC title contender, and I just don't think that they're that. And that's kind of why I wanted to make sure to highlight them. Like, I think Tennessee is going to be good this year. My expectation for them is that they're going to be one of the best teams in the country, and I don't think that they're going to be that with the roster that they've put together. That's just kind of where I'm at with it. Does that make sense?
Who else? Throw up my my losers again. Yeah, Dausters, forget he is a loser. Villanova. How do you not have Villanova on there?
I do. I have the Big East as a whole. That's kind of
the Big East. All right,
Big East as a whole. See, look at number 8, the Big East.
UConn. He's got UConn on there too.
Oh, here we go.
UConn is a loser.
Screenshot. Do you know how many times I'm going to see that screenshot over the course of the next 12 months?
Yeah.
Trevor.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Put it back up one more time before he goes to Italy. Before we send him away.
So here's my thing with the Big East, right? Real quick, and then we can kind of we can shut this thing down for the day. But I think St. John's and UConn had great off seasons. I don't know how they could have been better outside of St. John's landing, like a one of the first 2 point guards that they really wanted, right? But I think that they both had great off seasons. They're both going to be top 5, 8, 10, whatever you want to say teams. They both can win a national title. Once you get past that, it feels like all of the other programs of relevance in that conference are taking steps backward. I think Villanova, I don't know if it'll be a step backward, but I don't think Willard quite did what he needed to do to get Villanova back to the level that you would want them to be if you are the Big East, right? I'm talking top 20-ish kind of a team. I don't think that they're there. Xavier, the Richard Pitino, it's his first year. He's got a lot of work to do, and you lost Sean Miller. Like, I think Richard will do a good job there. I don't think it's going to happen in this first season. I understand what Shaka's doing with Marquette.
What about Providence?
I have Providence on
what do you
there.
think?
Like,
I think they did okay.
They did fine, but I don't think they did enough to be able to get them to the point from where they were, a team that is kind of the crown bound to being tournament bound. I don't know if I need to see it, basically. I need to see them be able to accomplish that, although they did just bring Ryan Gomes back. You know what Ryan Gomes is famous for, right? Waterbury's finest.
I was there.
I took a Mecca before Karan Butler. They're not bad. I fucked up. You want me to say it? I fucked up again. Creighton, look, you lose Kalkbrenner, you lose Pop Isaacs, you lose Stephen Ashworth. Like, it's just natural you're going to take a step back. And Georgetown didn't do what they need to do. But, like, there's 6 programs kind of in the middle of that league that you want to be trending towards being better than they were last year. And I don't think that
and we
all
thought
those teams
this was the year. And the crazy thing is, remember what everybody was saying 2 months ago was, well, the Big East has no cap, or will have no cap. Maybe it's next year that this goes into effect for the Big East being. But I think a lot of these teams, they've got money, but are they going to spend it at that level? Are they going to spend it? I'm with you. Like, Marquette scares the shit out of me this year. Xavier scares the shit out of me a little bit this year. Villanova scares the shit out of me again this year a little bit. UConn, St. John's will remain nationally relevant. We know that. Butler is what they've been. DePaul will be a little bit better. Creighton will take a step back. Seton Hall will probably be about the same. I mean, for the most part, I kind of agree with you on the Big East that they didn't do nearly what we thought they would do this offseason.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. So Let's see Trevor's list of Balkan restaurants in Japan. Loses Italy for the
good.
next day. Charleston area Wi-Fi signals.
Is my Wi-Fi
and with that,
wait. I thought Trevor said my Town Place Suites Wi-Fi was good before we started. Okay.
The more
previous was a little bit. It was a little bit.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
Draggedy.
Can I give the people a little insight into the world of how the Field of 68 operates? Trevor, you'll appreciate this. Every off season, like we kind of huddle together and decide what we want to do for the year and plan some stuff out. And Goodman's favorite thing to say is, we gotta make sure everyone's got a great shot, everyone's got great cameras, and everyone's got a microphone that works. And out of everybody that comes on the show, I think Jeff is the biggest problem when it comes to the shot, the Wi-Fi, and the microphone. And every single offseason, we got to get better at doing this. No, Jeff, you got to get better at doing this. And now people kind of understand what we're dealing with.
Hey, Rob,
here on this side of the table.
Rob, I didn't have a home. I didn't have a home for the last year. That is going to change in 2025, 26. That will change. I promise you.
Well, so you're finally not homeless anymore.
I'm 2 weeks away. I'm still homeless. I told you this when we started. That's why I'm at the Town Place Suites right now. In 2 weeks from today, I should have a home. Maybe. Hopefully.
We'll see. You just got to hope that your check's clear.
You know what the big thing is? I want you to work. Listen, I'm warning you now. I'm telling you now. Watch out for Mount Etna. Okay, watch out for Mount Etna. Okay.
Look, I know you're not like a geography expert, dude, but that is a long way from Florence. And you want to know how I know it's a long way from Florence? Because Trevor said that there was an eruption in Italy this morning, and I was like, oh shit, what am I gonna do? Is there gonna be am I gonna be able to go to Italy now? And so I looked, and it's a long way from Florence, so we're safe. We're good.
I want the picture of Dauster running away from Mount Etna. Full speed. All right, let's go. Go Pack. Go Pack.
Yes. All right, listen. We appreciate everyone
vacation, Rob.
tuning into the Field of 68.
I'm really gonna miss you
back.
for the next week.
I'll be a speaker Italiano like that, full of pizza and wine and pasta, and not having spoken to Jeff Goodman for 9 days. Going to be the best 9 days of my life. I'll see you guys on the other side.